Greetings. I'm Johnny Scoville, and this is Chase the Heat South America. Nothing like following Tommy, right? It's like being a stand-up, doing stand-up, and you have him, he goes first, and I got to come up after him. It's rough. How do you follow that? Well, I got some good stuff today. All right, we got Brock Bandy and Kristen Melinda. Boy, what a start. 5x5, if you guys could, and Marty Mongoose in the house. Please hit the like button. Let's all pull the okey doke. Where are my glasses? Man, I knew I was forgetting something. Archie's mom, good to see you. 5x5. Okay, yeah. Doesn't get much better than that. And from Brock. All right, people. You ever see a bear scratch his back against a tree? That's what Tommy just did. Thank you for being here. Barbara Waite, hello. Lisa Trimble, good to see you. All right, so I'm going to talk, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to talk about journaling. And here's why. Because it's important. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information that's going to help you in the follow-up, the second half of journaling. Because I think if you don't read what you've written, you're really missing it. Hi, Arwa. Barbara Aldrich. So good to see you. All righty. I'm not going to waste too much time. We're going to get right to it. Hang on. Let's see here. All right. Here's the thing. You got to finish. See, if you journal and you don't read it, I'm going to say a lot of stuff that Tommy said, but it's kind of like baking a cake and not eating it. You know what I mean? Planting a seed and not seeing what happened. You know what I mean? If it grew, sort of painting a beautiful picture and sticking it in a closet. You know what I mean? They get the point? It's like recording an amazing song, but never listening to it. I know you guys are following along. Here's the deal. This is great. Listen to this one. I made some notes. Journaling without rereading it is sort of like speaking to your future self, but never listening for the reply, right? So I'm going to give you some things to look for. As you're reading, first of all, you should read it the day you wrote it because you're going to see things that pop out that may jump out at you. But I'm going to give you a few nuggets of knowledge that you can look for. It's going to make hopefully things will jump out at you a little bit more readily. All right. Because here's the thing. I told you guys this. I lied to Tommy for probably a couple years about journaling. He was inside in prison saying, "Are you journaling?" I'm saying, "Yeah, I am." Did you know I was lying to you? He's not answering me. I was telling him I was journaling when I wasn't. You know what I mean? And the second I actually began to journal, amazing things happened. Hi, Jane. Oh, look at that. He knew it. Did you really? He says he did. Look at Brock. You're not late, Jane. You're right on time. You get a different perspective by reading it, almost like getting a second opinion from a doctor. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for therapists, and I'm a big advocate, big fan of therapy. It's like a present to yourself. And in a way, I don't want to ever take away from therapists because they do amazing things. However, in a way, your journal, if you do it right, it's kind of like your therapist. But it only is going to really be that way is if you go back and read it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some things to look for that may make the stuff jump off the page for you. Archie's mom, I used to feel really uncomfortable going back and reading my journal. After today's lesson on the Love Boat, totally understand why. Yeah, for sure. I've learned some very heavy things by going back and rereading it. So let me give you a couple things to look for. Obviously, the first one that I think most of us is patterns. I remember I went it was a little over a week, and I didn't realize it while I was writing, okay? But I went back and read it, and I'm telling you, I was griping, complaining about the exact same thing for more than a week. enough is enough. It's time to exact some change. So looking for patterns, okay? Same issues or emotions that keep popping up over and over again, kind of stuck in a cycle. Look at this. When you're in the moment, I don't think you'll ever notice stuff like that, do you? No, I think in the moment you don't, which is crazy. One would think that just in the process of writing stuff down, you're going to get a lot out of it, and you may, but going back is finishing the job. And I said this in Tommy's stream. I've typed, on the computer to do my journaling, but there's something about putting pen to paper. Listen, would you? Everybody that's in here, there's not a whole lot of us right yet. Hit the like button. Would you rather get an email from somebody that you care and you love, or would you rather get a handwritten letter? Right? When was the last time you got a handwritten letter? You need it. There's so much more to it. So the first thing is looking for patterns. Here's the deal: if your pain has a pattern, your healing needs a plan. That simple. The second thing you can look for is progress. Kind of compare how you handled the situation then versus how you're handling things now. All right, smack that thumbs up, says Tommy. That's the okie doke, we call it. Are you, when you're going back and you're looking at things as far as progress, are you responding more maturely, more calmly, more intentionally? Look at that. Arwa loves handwritten letters. I think we all do. My dad was big into letters. Really important thing is progress. Here's some interesting ones. Shift in language, right? I've gone through, and you guys don't. I don't swear on the channel. I think I've dropped a couple in like late at night or something in a couple of the live streams, but I don't. But if there's a shift in your language, sometimes you can see that you're writing with more hope, more confidence, a little bit more clarity. But I'll tell you something. I learned so much by the tone of what I'm writing and how I'm writing. If I'm dropping F-bombs in my journal, I got to take a look at that. Here's the thing. The way that you speak to yourself, and that's what journaling is, right? The way that you speak to yourself kind of becomes the way that you live with yourself, You'll notice his negativity, to be sure. If you knew, I wrote in my journal for over a year before I ever read any of it back. It's unbelievable. It's shameful to me. I believe that. Unanswered questions, okay? Do you pose questions to yourself? I do that a lot. Maybe you guys don't, but these are things that I've learned from my own. When I go back, I circle certain things. Do you guys ever do that? You underline things or circle things that stand out? I do that. Emotional triggers. All right, we all have them. I don't even like the word. The fact is, we all have them. Some of them are great. Somebody can say one thing and immediately gets a reaction out of you. It's a trigger. Does it still sting when you read it? It's fun. In the moment, it's a trigger. But when you go back and read it, does it still have that same effect on you? If it does, that's something you need to work through. And you got to look through your writings and see what brings up shame, joy, regret, anger. Those are worth focusing on, I think. 3333 for everything, says Tommy. Here's the deal. I don't think we're able to heal things that we don't feel. With me anyway. Moments of strength that you may have forgotten, things to celebrate. There are times where there are aha moments in your journaling. And when you go back and read them, it's worthy of celebration. It gives you a little bit of a boost. And again, this is stuff that I find. Other people, you may not find that, but this is stuff that has jumped off the page of me. I think a lot of times my journal is a stronger version of me. A lot of times. You know what I mean? I can write more with more strength that I can live. And I hope you guys are throwing in your input as well. If you guys have something that I'm not noticing. Decisions and crossroads are a big one for me. All right. What choices were you wrestling with? Do you guys find that? I really do. And if you are wrestling with something, what did you decide? You made change, hopefully. Where did you make that change? And was it the right move? A lot of times we think we're doing the right thing. Time will tell. Journaling will prove that. I find that when I journal, it helps with my confidence. Okay, it helps with trust. Trust has been a real issue with me, and it's something I'm really working on. Signs of growth that didn't look like growth in the moment, but when you go back and read it, you'll see it then. That happens. And that, again, that gives you confidence that something you're moving in the right direction. Barbara says, I knew I was holding back anger, but I hadn't realized how much until I went back and read past entries. It's a fact. I find laziness in mine. If I'm griping or writing about the same thing over and over again, it's laziness and not taking action. You know, at some point you get sick of writing the same thing, but you're only going to know that if you go back and read it. Tommy says, you're right. Patterns without reading your stuff back, you will miss every single pattern in your life. That's absolutely key. For such a long time, I wondered, you know, in the like a year that I wasn't reading stuff, how much growth I could have had I've been checking in. It's unbelievable. I don't know if you guys do this. You guys ever have wishes, goals, and prayers? If you have goals, let me tell you something. I think we all have goals, but if all you do is think about them or even speak about them, when you put it to pen and paper and you actually write it down, that's when it becomes action, I think, with me anyway. You know, if you look back at goals, what did you want in the moment? Do you still want those things, or have you kind of evolved? That happens to me a lot. I find that things that I was looking for or aspiring to become, I look back on and go, man, I'm glad that didn't happen, right? And this is gratitude plays a big part of that with me. I find that the more I speak of gratitude with things I have, the better it helps. Do you ever do messages to your future self? I don't know if you guys ever do that. That's something I've begun doing. Kind of in reflection, what would your past self think about where you are now? Right? Would you be proud of it? Would you be shocked by it? None of these things are going to come to you unless you actually go back and read it. It's reflection, right? And you know what? You find encouragement. I do anyway. I don't know if you guys do. Encourage means to give courage. It's so blank to me if you don't go back and read it. It's the truth. And the funny thing is that someone mentioned that I think it was Archie's mom, going back and looking at stuff you read a year ago. That's critical. There's so much change. And I'll tell you something, if you go back a year and there are still things that you're dealing with, that's inaction, you know, and that's a big deal. I'm guilty of that, inaction. It's funny, if I let Tommy read my journal, he'd probably be saying, hey, we got to talk about this, dude. I get stuck in a loop. I don't know if you guys ever feel that way. But ultimately, what are you learning about yourself, you know? And apply those things to action. You know, I've written down like goals, intentions. Without looking back, you don't know if any of those things took root. You know what I mean? It needs watering. The whole process of reading a journal is, without doubt, to me, it's the most valuable thing. No two ways about it. You'll see rhythms. I don't know if you ever find that. Cliff Ann, good to see you. Look at this. Archie's mom says, exactly, write all the BS that's fed to us about society standards. It's crazy to me. I find that writing down why I want to go change my life. I used to come up with goals and not look at why I wanted them. You know, that's a big thing. things that you want, the things that I want are never material things. It's growth. You know what I mean? And if I don't look back, it's just what happens is it's stagnant. To me, when I write in my journal, I'm planting seeds, and going back is how I water it, if that makes any sense. And to me, it's a laziness, and I'm just speaking about me. I don't know if you guys do this. If I'm not reading my journal entries, it's absolute laziness, and it's halfway. It's sort of completing a job, but not really. It's one thing if you're doing that at a job where you get paid, but this is this is personal growth. And I can hear him leaving a comment. Kristen says, I have to say therapy is much more productive, more quick for people who journal most of the time. And Tommy says, you're going to miss the instant epiphany that will get you to write more if you don't read what you just wrote. That's a fact. You know what I do? I'm guilty of that. For some reason, I feel if I go back like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I find that I do that more often than reading what I just wrote. In fact, that's something I need to start doing, because I really don't. I don't read things that I just wrote. I can even tell, I don't know if you do this, I can even tell by my penmanship what's going on. You guys ever do that? Well, I'm really heated about something. You can see it in the way the writing looks. But again, all of this will be missed if you don't. I've learned some things about me that I don't even want to share here, but I've learned some things about me that I promise you I never would have realized if I hadn't gone back and read it. Arwa says, hi, Barella, good to see you. Looking back at my past journaling shows me how much I've grown or things I still need to handle. I write at least one thing I'm grateful for. Therapy has helped me a lot. A big change in my writing, and I've bumped heads with Tommy about this forever. It's really easy for me to write at the end of the day. I write twice, at night and in the morning. I didn't write in the morning forever. It didn't make sense to me. When I did, it was the same thing. I want to have a good day. I want to be positive. I want to make a difference in somebody's life today. You know what I mean? But it was the same thing. Honest to God, the same thing. And then I kind of did what Tommy said. It's just a matter of, it's kind of like anything that comes out. I find that if I don't know what to write, just write anything. And he's right. What will happen, I don't know if you guys have done this, what will happen is during the day, things will happen, and stuff that you wrote in the morning that didn't really make a lot of sense. Well, I've remembered dreams even by doing that. But I'm telling you, to me, if I don't write in the morning, when I do write in the morning, it affects how I write at night. And it sort of feels complete when I do that. But I fought, not really with him, but with me, about writing in the morning for a long, long time. I think I still get more out of what I've written at night, because that's reflection on what happened during the day. But again, going back and rereading everything sort of ties it all together, and it makes more sense to me. Shelton, Winchester Super X, good to see you. Shelton says, reading my previous journal entry was a bit confusing. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Boy, it started off, I thought it was going to be serious. Thank you, Jeremy. Do you guys write in the morning? I think most people that journal probably journal at the end of the day. I don't know. I never even heard of journaling in the morning until Tommy brought that up. And then, when I did try it, I tried it and we even talked about it. It seemed like the stuff I read at night, there'll be some similarities if I'm going through something. If you're going through something, it isn't often handled immediately. So it's something that is going to be with you for a while. But in the morning, it's so different and so random, it's not funny. We did fight about that, but he's always right. Maybe I'm just off my rocker. Here's the thing. If somebody were, even if you didn't have names, like you didn't know who the person was, if you just read somebody's journal, I think that anybody's journal is going to make more sense at the end of the day, right? And it's the morning that's going to be a little bit more confusing. But when you tie it all together, it seems to be cohesive. I find I see more patterns in what I've written at night, far more patterns the stuff I write at night, much more so than in the morning. But again, it's always changing. What I find that I look for seriously is the way I write in my journal is very different than how I'm talking to you now. And it's way more raw, but the tone, the tone of what I'm reading and what I'm looking back absolutely tells me what's going on in my life, And while I don't curse here, my journal's a different story. Yeah, Arvo says writing at the end of the day definitely feels different. It makes more sense. All the stuff that I write at night makes more sense. The morning, you look at it, it just makes no sense. At the end of the day, though, a lot of the stuff that I've written in the morning sort of the light comes on, so to speak. Evan, good to see you. As long as they're chicken nuggets of knowledge. Do you guys, are there people here that don't write in the morning? Let me ask you that. Does everybody write in the morning here? Archie does most. I write in the morning most times. Sometimes if I'm busy, like I'll never miss writing at night. But sometimes the way my morning goes, occasionally I'll miss a morning. I try not to. Jane, learning to quantify goals and results has made a huge difference for me to evaluate progress and make quick fixes. My aunts sometimes automatic negative thoughts come alive sometimes when I reread what I've written. Yep, it releases the ants. Not so in the morning, but the nighttime for sure. Shelton says, sorry, being serious sometimes is no fun. I teach kids. I live to be a goofball.
Everybody.
Right? What are you doing with that water? Okay. Stealing my water. The last pattern that I saw was from Spaceball. They've gone plaid. That's it. Not reading your stuff anymore. I'm kidding. The morning journal is so that you don't walk out into the day with unresolved issues from what you did while you were sleeping. That's the part that didn't make sense to me. Like hearing that's one thing, but when I actually began writing, that began to make sense to me. When you go to bed, you think funny. I used to think that when you go to bed, it's to give your brain a rest because we've been working all day. That's a time where you shut down and your brain. I'll tell you what, the night shift, just goes to work. That's when they start. I think to a degree, the growth that I got as a human being became more. I don't know if it became more complete when I started journaling both morning and day, or I was just able to see it more. But it's a mistake if I don't journal in the morning. But the patterns is what bugs me the most. I find myself, what patterns creates action. You know what I mean? If I'm writing the same stuff every day, at some point you got to just shake it off and say something needs to be done. And that's what happens to me. I get down on myself though, where the ants jump in. I used to write what I wanted to get done in the day on my morning journal, just so that I had things to say. But the habit of writing has changed how I do my morning. It just flows now. It's exactly what was happening with me. If you look back at my older journals, when I first began journaling in the morning, everyone was the same. I want to have a good day. I want to be positive. And over time, that changed. Now, if you read it, it would make less sense to you, but it made more sense to me. If that makes any sense at all. GJ, good to see you. But I'll tell you, the ants that come after me, it became it's fuel a lot of times. So you have to be on your game because in the process of reading it, it's so unlike how I wrote a book with Tommy and I. We wrote a book about our past. It's cohesive. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's so fragmented, my journaling. The journal is where ants go to die. I'll tell you what, Heather Rhodes, good to see you. I can see that, but well, to me, it forces me to deal with them. It's not so much where they go to die; it's where I hit them head on. I have to deal with it because it's right there in front of you. You know, at some point, I got to read some of my journals to you guys. You get a laugh. Sometimes I have to write about something more than once, especially if it's in the 5%, not the 95. Another thing, yeah, that makes sense. When I do get into a jam, I do what a lot of people do. If I get into a jam, and it doesn't happen at night, but only in the morning, I'll just write about what I'm grateful for. And in the process of writing, it starts to flow. I had a professor in college, and when you get writer's block, it's brutal. You sit there and just stare at the page. Even if you just write anything, like a list of stuff you're getting at the grocery store, whatever, it begins the process and it starts to flow. But it won't until you put the pen to paper. My experience, anyway. A good morning journaling is a good for the soul as healthy breakfast for the body. Yeah, it sets you up for the day. Yeah, well, you know what? It sets your attitude. You know what I mean? You walk out of your door with a goal. But it's when all that changed, though, when I stopped writing the same things and started letting it flow. It didn't make sense to me when Tommy, it was frustrating. He'd say, just write down whatever. Use the old, may I mambo dog face to the banana patch, Steve Martin thing. And I laugh at it, but it didn't make sense. It started making sense when I would just let the pen fly. The professor I had in college had said, when you're in a jam, just write something. And that's when I learned I should have applied that to my journaling. It's different though. When you write something, you have an idea of what you're going for. With journaling, it's not. It's like just spitting it out on the page, you know. Roberta, I started off by making my bed this morning. That's wonderful. Good for you. I do that every morning. I never used to, but I do every single morning now. You know, it's a skill that you have to learn to be sure. Just let whatever's happening flow. And he's right. If you look back to my morning journals, you absolutely can tell that it's gotten to the point where it works. And it was a struggle. And you know what? We've all done that. You can see the struggle in what you've put in your journal when you read it, but you won't if you don't go back and read it. Your mama taught you well. I wonder what she'd say about that. Evict the ants from your mind on a page. It's harder for them to move back in. Well, you know what? It's almost like depression. We don't want to talk about it, but when you talk about it, it takes away a lot of its potency. I think in the same way, it's like that with ants. You're addressing it, you know, because we all have them. I don't ever remember ants until I got sober. Now I know they were there, but I don't ever remember having ants until the sobriety happened. Kristen says, I'm pretty decent about writing in the afternoon, less so in the AM. Me too. I get discombobulated when waking up. Here's the thing. I used to journal in the morning after I have a cup of coffee and kind of got going. And what I found was that if I just grabbed the journal while I'm still in bed, more things would come out. I think it's fresher. And I've actually journaled at 3 a.m. You know, if I have a dream or something, immediately write something down. Because what happens is, the second you have a dream, if you start writing, you're going to remember stuff. If you don't, you're going to forget it by morning. I think anyway. That's fascinating. I thought the exact same thing. I don't know that I've ever said it out loud, but the ants didn't wake up until I stopped doing heroin. That's interesting. Is there anybody in the chat that has never had a substance problem? Do ants, like, I don't know. I can't say. I've been addicted to something forever. So I don't know if they weren't there. It's really interesting. If they were there, I just didn't pay attention to them. So ants and sobriety, there's something about that. Archie's mom, connecting with yourself is just as important as connection with other like-minded people. I would say so, but I'll tell you something. If you don't go back and read your journal, you're missing the best part about it. You really are. I think you benefit even if you don't go back and read it. Honestly, you're going to benefit from journaling. It's a conscious thing you're writing, but truly there's so much unconscious stuff that goes on in your journaling that you don't realize. You know what I mean? It's interesting. I'm pretty purposeful with when I journal at night for sure, but when in the morning, it's so random and so bizarre. It doesn't make sense. Kristen says people use all kinds of things to quiet self-loathing and emotional pain. I've seen people swap cutting for booze and then booze for food. Wow. That's interesting. Well, I think a lot of our journaling most of my journaling is emotional pain or frustration. It's pure emotion. That's all of my journaling is emotional. You can sort of tell where I'm at, if I'm progressing, by the tone of what I'm writing. See, all right, this is good. I've always had ants. I never had a substance problem. Maybe we're all just made differently. I don't know. It's strange. I don't want to go back. I would never want to go back and do it all over again because it's been rough, But I don't know if I had ants. I really don't know. They just got so big, you know what I mean? They know your buttons, and it became a different thing. It's almost like a split personality. I mean, it's within me, but it's something totally different. Very, very strange. Do you guys find that? Do you see your ants in your writing? I only see, I don't see any ants at all in my morning journals, only at night. Drugs put ants to sleep. That's why we use them. Yeah, when I was in an active, when I was in addiction, I doubt that I had, the ants didn't bother me. Either that or I was just so numb I didn't pay any attention to them. That's the truth of it. Because the truth of it, if you're, what the ants would tell you when you're using? You're an idiot for you. It'd be brutal. But the minute you shut down and you stop using, they want you to keep using. That's what ants do. My writing is pretty ant heavy for sure. That's where they get out and leave me alone. I don't know if mine leave me alone. For me, it doesn't get rid of them. They're very obvious. They put them out in the open, so I see them. You know what I mean? It's much more obvious to me. And as a result, it becomes easier for me to focus on a specific area and work on it. Where if without the journaling, think about that. Think about people who don't journal at all. It's terrifying, right? Okay, so Jane, ants have been with me my whole life. I think if I never used, it would just about my job or where I'm going in life. But boy, I'll tell you what, getting sober, it just changed the whole game. Dane says, I was journaling Tuesday evening. I had a realization that in life, there's no such thing as static or neutral. Inaction is in fact an intentional input and will indeed boomerang in an impactful way. Wow. That's amazing. Wow. See, I agree with that. Without journaling forces action. With me, it does. I get so disgusted with myself saying the same thing over and over again that I've got to make changes, Yeah, journaling creates change. It forces it. It's a beautiful thing. Some will be breakfast chorizo and some will be beef for lunch. Hey, Caroline, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Archie's mom said, I had ants before the drugs. Now I'm only just beginning to understand that that's why I took them. You find now relatively speaking, your sobriety has, been fairly recent, which is fantastic. How much have your ants changed? Right? They just, mine are all about the time I've wasted, relationships I fractured, money I've wasted, but the big thing is time. It's brutal. I heard an interesting definition of addiction as anything we feel compelled to keep doing, even though we know it's bad for us. It can be a lot of things besides drugs. Yeah, I can see that. That's why they say 80% of the planet is addicted. I think that number is so much higher. I really, really do. I think we should all be in therapy, but if you can't, the journal is your therapist. But have you ever, man, I've lied to myself in my journal. How about that? And I realized going back, it's not that I'm lying in the moment. Like when I'm writing it, it doesn't feel like I'm lying, but maybe it's just not being, I'm not sure if it's lying as much as not being really forthright. But I go back and read things and I'm like, what? Like who wrote that? But again, to me, and maybe there would be no action in my life if it weren't for journaling, because it causes me to address things that I don't want to address, Now, there have been times where I've had a therapist and I was journaling completely different. And, very interesting. I think everyone lies to themselves in the journal until they stop. The journal is what points out the lies we tell ourselves. That's a fact. But, I don't as much anymore. I really don't. I think when I first got sober, or I shouldn't say when I first started journaling, it's when I wasn't really being forthright with myself. I was sugarcoating stuff. But then you get really raw and really brutal. It's painful, but it does help. Marty, thank you, Johnny, for helping me get through my mornings. I appreciate that, Marty. I'm glad you're here. Are you journaling, Marty? I hope you are. Let me get back to some more notes I've got here. When I was a kid, I used to try to journal like it was going to be a book someday. That was fun, but not really helpful for me. Yeah, I can see that. One of the notes I put down is, your thoughts are like art. Like, you know what I mean? If you never revisit them, you never get a chance to be inspired by them. You know what I mean? Additionally, one of the great benefits of going back and reading, you really see the growth. You see the changes, where if you don't go back and read it, you just keep going along. You're advancing the ball, but you never really have a solid understanding of how much that ball has been advanced until you go back and read it. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I wonder where I was. How could I possibly have been stuck like that? Dang, it was profound to me because I always looked at life in a binary sense, do or don't. Most problems could be avoided by realizing the specter of a third input of being passive. Being passive is a thing. Again, like a moment ago, I said that journaling, it's where action begins. But if I just journaled but never read it, the change would come so much slower if I never went back and read it. You know what I mean? To me, that's kind of how I am. It's going back and reading that where I realize that if I don't make changes, number one, I'm going to be stuck in the rut that I'm in. And the tone is going to be the same. The answer going to be the same. Going back and reading it is what forces me to make a change. Archie's mom, positive self-reinforcement every day. I'm being to realize that I'm not the crazy one in this world. I'm fighting for my life every day. I'm ready to live as I'm supposed to be. That's beautiful. How often do you guys? What percentage of your journaling is gratitude? Because anytime I get in a jam, and it mostly happens in the morning, I get to start with gratitude journaling, what I'm grateful for. Then I feel guilty that I'm a mess when it comes to journaling. But I promise you, it does help. I've journaled before when I was younger, but I have no family left, no job since I'm in mental health. I don't know. There isn't much to journal about these days for me. Gratitude. Start with gratitude then. What are you thankful for? I'm thankful that you're here. But I know that, like, I have a friend who struggles a lot, and whenever she does, we talk, and the gratitude is where she gets unstuck. Here we go. Marty, try journaling from memories in the past, like your first kiss, your first breakup, first time you were embarrassed. You'll find a whole new world journaling. That's something I've done is I've gone through. It's interesting that Tommy says that. I've had some crappy things that have happened in my life that I never addressed in the moment while they were happening. So there have been times where I get into a jam, or I'll just go back to a time in my life where things were horrific and begin writing about those. And in doing that, it gives you a chance to see the growth. Also, look at that. I need to journal. Start by just gratitude journaling. I know you. We've talked. There's a lot of things that you should be grateful for, and we all should be. I like Tommy's journaling prompt of writing every grade school teacher you can remember as far back as possible and unlock stuff. That's a fact. Yeah, he got me to do that. Like, how many kids, like freshman year in college, how many people can I remember from the freshman year in college from the floor I lived on? See, when I started doing that, I started to heal from wounds I didn't know existed. We all have it. Listen, if you go back and just sit here, even if you don't journal, you can say, well, back in 95, or after I got divorced. If you didn't go to counseling, journaling does that. It's sort of like your counseling, but that's something that I do. I don't do it enough, but specific problems I've had, like when Tommy went to jail, all right, I journaled about that because that was stuff in the moment. I wasn't journaling then, but when he went to prison, that was such a hard time, and journaling certainly started the healing process from that, but stuff I still probably need to go back and look at. See that, Marty? You got a lot of people who care about you, dude. Let me go to my, see if I have any more good notes to. Here's something I wrote down. I'm not sure if anybody can relate to this. When things are going well, there's a rhythm in my journaling. That makes sense. And when I find that thing, if the rhythm is gone, that's when I know that things are hectic. But that's when I need to journal the most. I don't know. It's just me. Dane says, eventually I found myself thinking about what I want to write down to get it out. It's very cathartic, even when you're not sitting in front of the notepad. Some of the best journaling I've had is when I've been stuck and I can't seem to write anything and nothing's flowing. When I'm able to get it going, even though it's hard, it's probably the most painful, but it just starts change for me. I wonder if I'd be doing anything if I didn't do the journaling. Maybe when reading your journal back, it might help if we see a negative, rewrite a positive. Yeah, I can see that. But here's the problem. 90% of my journaling is negative. I don't know if you guys are like that. But I mean, the majority of my journaling is negative. Problems. Journaling is, sorting through problems for me. Most of my huge epiphany had been when I wrote about things that were negative from my past because I had shoved them in the closet and not dealt with it. It's good to hear that other people have negative, there's a lot negative. Very, very little of what I journal about is, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I would say that 90% of my journal is negative. It really is. I see my journaling as the whole thing to me is problem solving. You know what I mean? Sometimes you really do want to forget. Amen. And journaling it's unpeeling the onion. I figured out through journaling why I used drugs in the first place. And that was amazing. But I wouldn't have realized that if I didn't go back and read it. But to me, that was so important because when I figured out why I used in the first place, I'm going back to when I was like 10 years old. Learning about why I used at all in the first place was profound. It changed my life, actually. There's tons of stuff from 10 to 30 all began to make sense when I from peeling the onion, from journaling. It was amazing. I told my children, you have to start journaling now. I wonder what would have happened if had I journaled all along. I guarantee you I'd be a better version. The suppressed emotion and trauma I have masked for 20 years was coming out of me like a volcano, starting to feel more like steam. Wow. Carolyn, I did heroin for 3 decades to try and forget. I journaled to try to remember. I worked through the problems, and then I've got nothing to try to put to sleep with dope. That's heavy. Tommy, did you ever journal? I know the answer. I've never journaled while I was using. Has anybody done that? I never did. I think I was absolutely unable to when I was using. It wasn't going to happen. See, really, all journaling is, if you think about it, it's the closet. It's going into the closet and dealing with things you never wanted to deal with at all. And you know what? It sort of lessens the burden, because we all have it. We all carry stuff around. Baggage, closet, same thing, right? I see it as the same thing. Carolyn says, I do agree, Tommy, but it's hard to remember the bad things. To me, the bad things are easy to remember because they're huge chunks of time. It's incredibly difficult to remember the trauma. That's why we hide it. But to become the best version of yourself, working through that in a journal is key. It is in my life. You know, Caroline says you didn't want to deal with certain things. Absolutely. Here's the funny thing. One of the things that happens to me in journaling, although I see growth, and I always do, it also reminds me of how far I need to go. So no matter how much I accomplish through my journaling, it's like the older you get, the more you realize you don't know anything. In journaling, my onion seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger the more I journal. You know, I think I have things figured out, and then I realize that I don't. I sometimes feel like I could spend 4 hours a day journaling if I just sat down and didn't get up and do something else. Sometimes I have to write about the same things for a bit when it's in the 5%. That's one of the jams that I get, Lisa, is that I tend to, there's definitely a theme throughout all of my journaling. There's a theme that kind of weaves its way in and out and has for years. I shouldn't say years. The truth of the matter is I probably only have been journaling for maybe 5 years, you know, which tells me that's a lot of onion I still have to deal with. I know this is not for everyone, but reading scripture is an extremely important component to confronting issues in life. The old wisdom is there for us to learn from. Many answers can be discovered. With me, it's not so much. Yeah, I suppose. To me, I get a lot in church. I know it's not scripture per se, but there's definitely, I don't know about you guys, but there's absolutely a very serious spiritual component to my journaling. It's almost like prayer in a way. You know what I mean? It may not be for everyone, Dane, but it certainly has done wonders for me. Caroline, if we can't keep it in, it's like carrying a dark cloud inside. Well, that's a fact. The problem with not dealing with things is that they don't actually go away. We just stop being aware of them, and they keep hurting us without knowing. Well, that's, we shove things in the closet. It's amazing. It's an interesting human thing that we put in the closet and somehow we forget about it. And yeah, some of the stuff that I've ended up journaling about that popped up, I can't believe that it's now that this is happening. It's a bizarre thing. Sometimes in journaling, I haven't been journaling as long as Tommy, but things will pop up in journaling that just creates, it's like it just keeps going. It feeds on itself. That's the key. If we choose not to work through the stuff, that doesn't mean that it's gone. It just means it's kicking our ass quietly from the closet. Would you say, Tommy, the closet and the onion, same thing? Look at that. Andrew Heat Seeker Boy. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. It's interesting. It's the first time I've ever realized it right now that there's really a spiritual component to all of my journaling. It really, for a lot of it, it does seem like prayer. You know what I mean? So although I'm journaling, I'm really talking to me. It's almost like it's a three-way thing. I'm talking to God and me. We peeled the onion to remove stuff from the closet. We look at our past, and in doing so, we find things we've hidden. That's amazing when you have revelations. Like when I kind of got to a point where I really, like why I used it in the first place was unbelievable. Because it wasn't something I was aware of. And it was so heavy, how could you not be aware of it? And it tells you the power of the mind, shutting down, say, I'm not going to deal with this. There are things there are things in my life that I ought to be journaling about, and I avoid it. You guys ever do that? Because there's a handful of things right now that I guess I'm not ready to deal with yet. But there are things in my life that have happened seriously within the last 6 months that I need to be journaling about, and I'm not. And that's I'm admitting it. It comes from a place of fear. It's uncomfortable. Like it's never fun to journal about the stuff that you're avoiding. But the minute I realize that it's something that I'm avoiding, it's kind of time to look at it. It's a great thing understanding ourselves. Surely it can only be progress. I'm making a better future for ourselves and everyone around us. I know that there are times when I journal where it affects my day negatively because something pops up that I haven't dealt with. You know what I mean? And that is a process. It's interesting. Brandon says, sometimes I watch you and Tommy's show and I know what I need to confront, but I let it go when I close YouTube. It's running away from those things. Well, that's the closet, but we all have that. But this is what I need to do. There's some things that I need to deal with. I got to just start dealing with it. Specifically with me in the last 6 months, I've got some stuff my closet got a lot bigger. You know what I mean? I'm late. Tony Suter, I have a note. Good morning. Good to see you. I'm going to need to see who signed that note, Tony. Look at this. Dane says, my theory is drug use is escapism. Journaling, expressive outlet, would be the closest thing to the opposite. Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely, I can see that. When you close YouTube, open up your journal. Try it 30 days. It'll change your life. Well, here's the thing. Like admitting to you guys right now, I got a bunch of crap for the last 6 months that I've literally been avoiding journaling about. And the craziest thing is, this is stuff that's so in the forefront that I cannot believe that I've avoided journaling about it. But that's the bottom line. I've got to do it. So it's going to start today. You know why I avoid it? Because I avoid confrontation. And even though it's an inner confrontation, it's like a confrontation with myself. And I got to stop doing that. How about that? Peeling the onion right in front of you guys. Are the Scoville brothers living in South America? I've missed a lot. Andrew, we are. Tommy told me we're going to New York. It was supposed to be a 4-hour flight. Like a day and a half later, we end up in South America. I'm still trying to figure out what happened. So what I'm going to do, let me ask you this. Do you guys have things in your life that you're absolutely not writing about, that you know it's there, and you journal anyway, but you're kind of like moving, like navigating around it because you don't want to deal with it? That's where I'm at. So I've got to, I'm going to do that. We are in Ecuador, as Tommy said. Yep, I'm avoiding the mental pain. Just eat a hot pepper. Well, here's the thing. Thank you, Arwa. There's a full story of why we moved. That's what I'm going to do. I feel like sort of embarrassing to sit here and look at the red dot and say I'm avoiding stuff because I don't want to deal with it. It doesn't do anybody any good. My closet is getting bigger all the time. So I have a hard time writing things down physically, but my journal is my guitar. I play all my emotions come out and leave it all in the airwaves and recordings. It's a full-on escape. Now, I'm a guitarist too, but how do you go back and I don't know if that would work for me because I don't know, like to me, it's all emotion playing guitar, but it's not specific things. Like I promise you, what I'm going to journal about this week is going to be things in my closet that I've been ignoring. There you go. Hallelujah, Johnny. Avoiding confrontation is not my thing. I feel the same way about internal conflicts. Well, that's what I've got. Here's what happens. And most of the stuff that's in my closet is from way back. But I've just shoved a bunch of crap in my closet in the last 6 months. And at my age, to be knowingly putting things in my closet because I don't want to deal with them is cowardly. It is. I believe that things like music and art can absolutely be a form of journaling. However, writing stuff down that you can read back will open up doors you didn't know existed. That's the thing. I mean, I don't write music. I don't know how to read or write music. So what I do to not forget is I'll just make a video recording of it. And I've got hundreds of recordings. But if I go back and play them again, it's just music. It's not words and memories and me. And guitar, it's helping my ability to play guitar, but it's not dealing with problems. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start writing about the crap that I don't want to be writing about. Something good will come from it, though. Oh, I heard that one. Boy, that's it. That's it. Revelations, people. BT, you are on fire. You're so close to starting to put pen to paper and becoming a much better version of yourself. You have no idea. I say that with love. Well, here's the deal. Hey, David Bully, I'm going to, it's about time. I'm going to start dealing with these things. And you know what? The last 6 months have been turmoil in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? They have. I'm guilty of saying, I'm all right, I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. That's not doing anybody any good, right? And if I really want to be a better version of myself, I got to do that. The good news is this. Here's the good news about this. The stuff that I've shoved into my closet in the last 6 months, it's really easy to remember. It's not like stuff from from grade school that I'm trying to recall. It's very fresh, so I'll be able to deal with it better. A new YouTube channel, Johnny Rocking Guitar. I'm not that good at it, Andrew, but thank you. Archie's Mom, the world is maddening, and the ants are coming in at an early age. We need to look at the whole structure of society. Our humanity is doomed. Look at this, Caroline. You are very wise, and you've been through a lot. You know what? Get to writing, brother. That's what I'm going to do, you guys. I'm going to stop this right now. I appreciate you guys listening to me. I got an ugly onion to peel. But you know what? You'll probably see me become a better version even visually. When you feel better, you look better. You walk differently. You carry yourself differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with some junk that I need to deal with. Forgiving yourself is my biggest internal conflict. Me too. All right, you guys are awesome. Thank you for helping me peel this onion right in front of you. It is what it is. I've been cowardly, but I'm not going to be cowardly anymore. You know, I got some stuff to do. I love you guys. I got some writing. See you guys tonight. I'm Johnny Scoville, and this is Chase the Heat. Damn it all, huh?